This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your source for the latest Iowa ag news headlines right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, Mark Magnuson, and Andy Peterson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Dustin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Huffman. Today is Tuesday, April the 1st, 2025. It's April Fool's Day. Coming up a little later on in the program, we're going to talk with Corey Bratland of agmarket.net to find out what happened in those markets today. But first, we're going to continue our conversation with Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Naig that we began last week. We talked about things like avian influenza and much more. All right, and I know you mentioned foreign animal disease, and obviously we know the birds are moving. The robins are back. The geese are moving through. It hasn't been like a complete explosion of it, but we have seen a few cases of HPAI popping up once again here this spring, haven't we?
Well, my wife and I were having coffee the other morning, and she said, listen to that. It sounds like spring out there. And sure enough, you got birds singing again, and we're seeing those migratory birds flying north. And right now, I have to tell you, this is a time where we kind of hold our breath. I don't mind telling you that we sort of, unfortunately, the last 3 years, and now spilling into the fourth year, have expected a return of high path in the spring when we see that northern migration. Now, knock on wood, we haven't seen anything now for a couple of weeks, but we're watching very closely. It's a time of high alert from a biosecurity standpoint for our producers. A lot of additional work being done now around biosecurity audits that are being performed or will be performed by USDA. We appreciate the focus that USDA is bringing. We appreciate the additional support for our producers that the USDA is bringing, and there's still work that has to be done on trying to prevent this. And so it's a time of high alert and preparation for what we hope is a quiet spring, but it may very well be just like it has been the last few years. Only time will tell.
So you talk about those audits that USDA is doing. Can you maybe expand a little bit about what more plans they have in place now? Because we know that Secretary Rollins did, commit to some more support of, trying to prevent that disease from spreading any further.
Right. So USDA Secretary Rollins did announce, kind of a five-pronged approach, some of which included doing additional biosecurity audits on those poultry farms, meaning that you're still trying to find. The industry has done tremendous work on preventing spread from farm to farm, but they are still, unfortunately, seeing infections that are coming from wild birds into those operations independently of each other. And so there are obviously still gaps in biosecurity, and we need to understand that. Is it air handling? Is it the physical structure of a building? Is it what's happening here? Is it, what are the vectors that the virus is getting in? And so these audits, I think, are intended to try to identify that. And then USDA had also announced some cost share that would be provided for those producers to then invest in the mitigation strategies that they find in those, if they find gaps in those audits. And so that's a process that's rolling out. The other piece that is getting a lot of focus, and we're glad that it is around vaccine. And perhaps maybe other therapeutics that we don't know what those might be. But I think the point is we ought to be looking at any tool that's available to us to try to address this in a way that's new, that we haven't been able to use before. There are trade implications, to be sure, for the use of vaccine. But I happen to believe that you can, by sector, if the laying industry and the turkey industry want to use vaccine, I think there ought to be a way for us to do that in a way that doesn't affect trade when it comes to broilers. So not easy, but it can be done. And of course, the first thing you have to have is a viable vaccine to even use. And I think there's a significant investment now that's preparing to be made or is being made in that question. So we think that's a good outcome, because if you can prevent it from ever infecting a farm, of course, that's better than having to deal with it on the other side. So we're anxious to see work done there.
All right. And I know it seems like it's a long ways off, but we're talking about it, and you've been talking about it as well. And that's the state fair. I know I don't want you to get all excited for a shake yet, but, obviously you've got some things that you guys definitely celebrate and recognize while you're there, including the Century and Heritage Farms. Let's talk about some of the things that you guys are wanting to make sure folks are aware of here a couple months out yet.
Well, I'm leaving as soon as I get done with talking to you. I'm pretty much leaving and getting on the road for a couple days, and so I may look for some ice cream and maybe something fried. I'll do that. Now you got me thinking about that summer fair food. But yeah, we do have two really great, just wonderful awards programs, and one is truly one of my favorite days of the entire year, and that's the day that we do the Century and Heritage Farm recognitions at the Iowa State Fair. So that's farms that have been in one family for 100 years or 150 years. And it's a wonderful day in the historic livestock pavilion at the Iowa State Fair. Couldn't be a better place to hold that event. Hundreds of families will come and celebrate, and we're just thrilled to be able to do that with our partner, the Iowa Farm Bureau Federation. And so if you think you qualify, or if you are in the process, we want you to apply to be recognized and get in the group for this year at the fair. The cutoff date is June 1 for applications for Century and Heritage Farms. Go to our website, iowaagriculture.gov. And of course, the other way is call the office. Kelly will take good care of you and helps a lot of families through the process. But please do that. The other is the Iowa Environmental Leader Awards. And so this is something we work with Governor Reynolds and with DNR Director Kayla Lyon on. It's a group effort, and we've been recognizing about 50 to 60 families each year at the Iowa State Fair, folks that are leaders in conservation, doing the right things on their land, but they also tend to be people that are, they host field days. They are leaders in their communities, in that they're showing how no-till, strip-till, cover crops, all kinds of different practices can be used. And so we also recognize those folks at the Iowa State Fair. So get your application in, nominate yourselves, nominate a neighbor, nominate a friend. We just love to recognize families that are doing the right things.
And that again was Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Naig. We're going to take a short break and hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soy Checkoff. When we come back, we'll talk with agmarket.net and look at the closing markets. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net. We're back on Ag Matters PM here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and time to do the closing market recap. And we're talking right now with Corey Bratland of agmarket.net. Corey, what did we see come out of those markets here today?
Hey, Dustin, good to be with you again here. Grain markets had a nice rebound here today. What was led the market higher was soybean oil, up over a couple dollars a gallon here. The soybean, the biofuels and the big oil company formation that they're going to go talk to the EPA. They're going to be talking about a new plan in which they're going to be asking for higher mandates of the biomass diesel. So that had soybean oil up pretty big on the day, spilled into the soybean market, had got them up 20-21 cents here, and eventually even spilled over into the corn and the wheat market. So.
All right, and I know they had started off pretty strong, but getting that toe along right there was pretty good. And obviously the market's watching things outside of the reports now. Those are in our rear view mirror. Sounded like everything kind of pretty well came in line with what expectations were.
Yeah, the report, nothing new, wasn't real shocking. It was kind of a surprise to us in that we thought we'd maybe see some surprise. The market did come out with, high corn acres at 95.3. Bean acres we thought maybe could have been a little bit lower. A little bit of a surprise, I guess, to me was, the wheat acres being down up here in South Dakota. I thought maybe our spring wheat acres would still be pretty strong in here, but they took them down by 600,000 acres. So, but I think the bigger story was the stocks number. The quarterly grain stocks on corn, especially unchanged. The number was spot on with what the trade estimates were looking for. So overall, that's going to be viewed as kind of friendly in the big picture. Export pace has been running well ahead of last year's pace. So many analysts out here are looking for exports here in the upcoming supply and demand reports that we get each month. Could see these exports start to ratchet up. We've heard anywhere from 50 to maybe 100 million bushels higher for the annual estimates that the USDA is looking for exports. So.
All right, moving over to the livestock side of things, we know that cattle had an interesting week. I know we talked with Robin yesterday, and he had made comments as well that, the cash didn't develop as way everything was supposed to. And cattle were a little bit weaker here yesterday to start the week. And did we see that follow through? And how did hogs fare as well out there in livestock?
Yeah, livestock ended up strong, and they were a little sluggish to get going. So I haven't heard any physical trade yet. I'm suspicioning that there's some higher trade here today. The way cattle took off. Now, yesterday the cattle were under a little bit of pressure with China, South Korea, and Japan all agreeing that when we get the announcements of the tariffs tomorrow, that they are going to work together into that they are going to come back and hit the U.S. with some tariffs. So those are our three largest beef buyers in here. But the outside money, the big money must know something or see something in that. Cattle were up anywhere. Like April live cattle were up $1.32, but all the deferred contracts were up, $2.30 to $2.60 a hundredweight. The feeder cattle up $1.82 on the April cattle, with all deferreds up $2.65 to $3. And the hog market, we had the April lean hogs under a little pressure, down 35, but everything else was up well over $1. So, like I said, I'm guessing that we got some higher cash trade. It just hasn't been reported yet here so far this week.
All right, and then moving on to hogs, how did they look here coming out of the day?
Yeah, hogs closed up stronger overall. The Aprils were down about 35 cents, but the deferreds up $1 to $1.75. So there as well, I mean, we are seeing some of that demand pick up a little bit just because of the price correlation between hogs and between pork and beef. It heavily favors pork in here, and with the economy being of question here and maybe slowing down a little bit, and we think we're going to see more retailers start to push their way a little bit towards more of the pork just because of a cheaper alternative.
All right. Well, folks want to talk about market strategies, maybe make some more plans on either what their investments are going to be or what their marketing plan should be for their grain, especially if they've got some finalizations to do on this 25 crop. What's the best way for them to get in touch with the folks there at agmarket.net?
Yeah, the best way is just head on over to our website, which is www.agmarket.net.
All right. Well, Corey, thanks so much for the insight. We'll talk to you again real soon.
All right. Thanks, Dustin.
That again was Corey Bratland of agmarket.net. Let's go ahead and take a look at the closing numbers on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network market screen. At the close, May corn was up 4.5 at 461 3/4. Soybeans up 19.5 at 1034 1/4. Soybean meal down 40 cents at 292.30. Soy oil up $2.55 at 47.44. Chicago wheat up 3.5 at 540 1/2. Kansas wheat up 8 1/4 at 565 1/4. Minneapolis spring wheat up 2 cents, that's at 594 even. Oats up 8 3/4 at 355 even. Live cattle up $1.32 at 209.12. Feeders up $1.82 at 288.27. Lean hogs down 35 cents at 87.37. Pork cutouts unchanged at 98.07. Class 3 milk 2 cents higher at 17.13. And that brings us to the end of the closing market recap and today's show. You can find all our content online at iowaagnet.com, as well as follow us on Facebook, X, and on our YouTube channel. While you're here, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you can be notified each time we put out a new video project. Also, don't forget about the 3 times daily free of charge market analysis coming right to your mobile device through the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network Market Podcast. You can find them on Google, Amazon, Spotify, Podbean, and also iTunes. Don't forget, also, we had our remarks from Iowa. Also, we had the full remarks from U.S. Ag Secretary Brooke Rollins from last night's Ag Leadership Dinner. You can find those through Podbean as well as on our website at iowaagnet.com under the podcast tab. From the iAron Studios in Des Moines, I'm Dustin Huffman. For Andy Peterson, Mark Magnuson, and Riley Smith, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.